4 centuries ago, Henry VIII came here to woo the girl who became his second wife, Anne Boleyn. Her home was Hever Castle in Kent, the Garden of England, only a short drive from London. It's said she watched the arrival of her royal suitor from this window.
I dream of you at night. I long for you by day. You dare to tell me that I have the power? I'm no good with any other woman. I think of nothing but you. Of you and me playing dog and bitch. Of you and me playing horse and mare. Of you and me in every way. I want to fill you up, night after night. I want to fill you up with sons.
Bastards. They would be bastards.
Here at Hever, Anne refused to become the king's mistress. It was to be marriage or nothing. Now Hever relives those dramatic scenes with Richard Burton as the tempestuous Henry and Genevieve Bujold as the strong-minded Anne in Hal Wallis's new film, Anne of the Thousand Days. What drew the Hollywood producer to this subject?
Well, the particular appeal in historical films is that you're dealing with history. And this particular one has a fascinating love story between Henry and Anne Boleyn. And the value of this particular property is that it was done as a stage play by Maxwell Anderson. It is something that Richard Burton wanted to do and something that I wanted him to do. And all of the elements fell into place.
Between shots, the king has visitors, Mrs. Burton and daughter. How does Richard Burton see Henry?
I'm fascinated by Henry VIII. He's a kind of giant-sized Hamlet. He's capable of every possible variety of moods. He's tempestuous, he's demonic, he's subject to fits of melancholia. He's a man of brilliant intelligence and great ambition and ruthlessness. There's practically no adjective that you can apply to anybody that doesn't apply to Henry VIII.
We step back into the England of Anne Boleyn as the movie makers fill in the detail and trappings of the period. Hever's role as a stately home attraction for visitors from all over the world is changed for a while, and it becomes a strange mixture of 16th century life and 20th century filming, incongruous sometimes, as past mingles with present in the recreation of history which the producer requires.
When you get into this, of course, you have the matter of actual locations, of castles, of wardrobe, of furniture, of props. Everything that goes into the making of history has to be created, has to be built. There was no furniture available, no costumes available. Fortunately, we had the castles, but of course every interior set and everything that goes with it has to be constructed.
The Royal Four poster is the work of a modern craftsman, built to the carefully researched design of the art director. Interiors start on the drawing board, then come to life, as in this gay ballroom. But Anne fell from grace. At the Tower of London, she faces her trial. Her prosecutor demands the death sentence. On Tower Green, the grim scene is set for the girl who failed to give Henry an heir. Cardinal Wolsey, Anthony Quayle, gets his orders from director Charles Jarrett.
I need something to motivate me into the wide shot, and so farewell. It needs a kind of gesture after the last word.
The natural thing would say, Thomas, you have a nutshell. Farewell.
That'll be right. Do that. Much better. And then off you move. As the cardinal moves off, gentlemen, of course, you will follow him and form up behind, all right?
The Cardinal's cavalcade rides out, destination Rome, to ask the Pope to set Henry free of his first marriage and so enable him to marry Anne. But Wolsey has little hope. He has tried forcefully to make the king see reason.
I beg you, as your faithful servant, I beg you to consider. Catherine is a princess of Spain. Try to annul your marriage and you'll gather enormous forces against you. The combination of Spain, Naples, Germany, the Netherlands, all of them ruled by Catherine's nephew. The Roman Catholic Church all over Europe. Your own people even who love the Queen. I will marry Anne. I will have a crowned queen.
It could mean war. It could mean the loss of your kingdom.
I will marry Anne if it breaks the earth in two like an apple and flings the two halves into the void.
The Anne of history walked in these gardens. Now, the young Canadian actress, Genevieve Bujold, takes on the biggest challenge of her career as the Anne of the screen.
Yes, are you in there, John? Action!
What are her thoughts about Anne Boleyn?
I love her. I've read a great deal about Anne Boleyn, but now I'd like to meet her. I feel I know her, so I hope I'm making her as alive and now as possible.
Bells ringing, great excitement. Action, sweep!
Anne's maids of honor flutter around the new queen. But while directing this happy interlude, Jared is planning his approach to the tragic climax of the film, the execution.
The usual thing in executions is to, the person comes up onto the scaffold, they kneel down, there's a prayer, the blade is raised, down it comes, and off goes the head. But actually, apparently what happened was that Anne knelt after her prayers, lowered her head without a block as she was being killed with a sword. And as the swordsman raised his head, she looked up at him. And he was a Frenchman. And in a panic in French, he called to his assistant, "She looks at me, distract her." And his assistant moved in front of Anne. She looked from the executioner to his assistant, and as she looked, he brought down the sword. It's messy, it's crude. But if we are going to attempt to create that crudeness and horror of the moment, rather than do the traditional clean cut.
But before that, there are scenes to be shot of the royal lover's happier days. And more from the screen, Henry, about his task.
He's not an English king, he's a Welsh king. His name is Tudor. His father was a Welshman called Henry VII, and they came from North Wales. So, he's a bit like me, he's Anglo-Welsh.
How do you set about becoming Henry VIII?
Well, the particular character that I play is not a real historical character after all. I mean, he's a concoction of Maxwell Anderson's and various other hands. But in the case of Henry VIII, he's so famous from the Holbein cartoon that there is naturally a desperate attempt made by most actors to look like him. Well, I haven't tried to do that. And it also is true, of course, that the part has been played very successfully 2 or 3 times in the last 30 years. And especially by Lawton, who's the most powerful and the greatest shadow over me, I would say. But I certainly make no attempt to play it like Lawton, as indeed who could. So I play it more or less as an extension of myself. I hope it works.
What I do is God's will. And my prayer always is that he will allow no thought to enter my heart or mind that is not his will. He has never failed me, Thomas.
Your Majesty realizes that this might be seen as
what?
As an excuse for doing as you please, eating the trough dry.
I'm the King of England. When I pray, God answers.
Yes, my lord.
And let no man dare question it.